Masquerade. What is it? Masquerade is the new immersive version of Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical Phantom of the Opera. I got the chance to see Masquerade a few days ago, and I want to share some of my spoiler-free thoughts and analysis with you. I am not going to be sharing what you might see or experience or hear during the show. This is not going to spoil the plot or any arrangements or details. Instead, I want to talk more broadly about what Masquerade is and how it fits in the Phantom canon. You could say that Masquerade is just a retelling of Phantom of the Opera, but one where you're immersed in the story. But that's not exactly it. You are immersed in the story, it happens all around you, the audience is much smaller, so you're moving together as a group through the physical spaces where the show takes place. The cast are in and around you and interacting with you. And while the logistics for this show are a technical marvel that I would love to know more about and talk more about, what I want to talk about today is the storytelling. Because this is definitely not an objective telling of Phantom of the Opera. In fact, it's probably the most subjective version of Phantom of the Opera I've ever seen outside of fanfiction. Not only is Masquerade being told to you specifically from the Phantom's perspective, meaning everything that you see is being filtered through the Phantom's version of events and how he perceived them, but also this is the Phantom looking back on these events retrospectively. And I would argue it's not just any retrospective look. I think that this is the version of Phantom we see in Love Never Dies, looking back on Phantom of the Opera. So in a way, this is a many times abstracted version of the story. Here, let me put it this way. We start with the original book by Gaston Leroux. That story is interpreted into lots of feature films, which shape the public perception of it, and eventually is retold as a musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber and others. Then the stage version of the show is again reinterpreted to be a filmed version of the musical directed by Joel Schumacher. And there are definitely aspects of the Joel Schumacher movie that then later re-influenced the way the stage musical was being told. And then we have Love Never Dies, which is supposedly a sequel to the original stage musical, but if you've seen the show, you'll know it's also a reinterpretation of the events from the original show, Justice for Raoul. So Masquerade takes the version of the Phantom that we met in Love Never Dies and has him retell us the events of Phantom of the Opera entirely from his own memory and his own perspective. This does fascinating things to the story. For one, arguably, there's really only one character in Masquerade, that being the Phantom, or Eric himself. He goes on a journey as he relives these events. But otherwise, the characters that we're familiar with, Christine, Madame Giry, Raoul, we're not necessarily seeing them as characters. We're seeing the way the Phantom perceives them and how he remembers them behaving, or how he interpreted their behavior when the original show's events were happening. So they almost exist only to serve his plot, and not necessarily as individual characters. Which is not at all to say that the characters' performances are flat, because the actors that I saw perform were absolutely incredible. But they were playing the characters in a way that's very different from any other way I've seen these characters played before, and I think it's because they're not really real. They're the way the Phantom interprets them, kind of like living versions of the little dolls we see him play with in the Joel Schumacher movie. Having said that, it's probably not much of a spoiler to say that this version of Phantom of the Opera is straight up Phantom apologia. If you are a Phantom and Christine shipper, get yourself to Masquerade stat. For that reason, while I definitely recommend this show, I think it would be a rather strange way to see the show for the first time, because you're seeing it through someone's memory and through someone's skewed perspective. I don't think Masquerade could ever really replace Phantom of the Opera, but as a companion piece to Phantom of the Opera, it's fascinating, and genuinely, I would love to see more shows explore this kind of format, because I can think of 6 or 7 shows right off the top of my head that would be so fun to not only be able to walk through and interact with, but see specifically through one character's eyes. Like, think about how fun it would be to see Hamilton, and sometimes during the day, you get Hamilton's perspective of the show, but other times during the day, you get Aaron Burr's perspective of the show. The same for Les Mis, and for both shows, because you'd need to severely abridge them to make the logistics of this walk-through show format work, you could really divide your audiences up and only give them certain songs and certain scenes that shape the way they view the entire narrative. I mean, imagine going to see the show with your friends and immediately getting split off, and half of you see Jean Valjean's version of Les Mis and the other half see Javert's, and then you can go to dinner and fight about it. All that to say, Masquerade is a narrative and technical marvel. I'm so happy that I got an opportunity to see it. I definitely recommend going to see it if you have the chance. I hope it keeps getting extended indefinitely because they definitely made the most of that theater space they're occupying. And it seems to me like they could just continue sending people through it forever and ever and ever and ever. But don't necessarily consider it as a replacement for Phantom of the Opera. And if you've never engaged with Phantom of the Opera before, this would be a strange place to start.